Welcome back to One on One with Mr. U. Of course, I am your host, Mr. U. In studio with us, motivational speaker, life coach to the athletes, published author, and director of the nonprofit Purpose Over Position. Bad Lee is in the house, man. What's good, brother?
Mr. U, it's all on you, man. I'm just happy to be here with you, and I'm excited to just talk some.
Hey, man, me too, man. I love this, man. I got a lot of things I want to get into. We see if we can jump into it, but customarily, I always ask our guests to come in and kind of share briefly their upbringing, their background, how they got from there to here. Share that briefly with us if you can. Go.
Yeah, so from Durham, North Carolina, originally. Love Durham, aka the Bull City, is what we call it. Some of you guys may remember the old movie, what it was, Bull
Bull
Durham.
Durham.
Yeah. Maybe before I was even born. But we got the minor league team there, and so we pride ourselves. Grew up with mom and dad, stepfather in the house, and man, I'm so extremely thankful for my stepfather, who I know as father. Growing up, older brother, got an older brother that's 7 years older than me that still plays professional basketball still to this day. He was a big inspiration for me growing up, especially when it came to sports. I really looked up to his career, and he played football, and so I had some great people in front of me. Grew up kind of in the hood of Durham, North Carolina, and then later on, maybe about seventh grade, we ended up moving to a single family house, and so that was big time for us. And so from Durham, went to college at Georgia Tech. Was in Atlanta for 3 years, where I was a starting quarterback in the ACC. Leading the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and then I decided to transfer my last 2 seasons of eligibility to James Madison University, which is in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And so spent some time in Harrisonburg, had an unbelievable career at JMU, and then I lived in Canada a little bit, Saskatchewan. I lived then from Saskatchewan, moved back to Durham, moved back to Atlanta. Then Atlanta moved to Indiana. We lived there for a season, then lived in Maryland, and now we're here in Charleston, South Carolina.
Man, a whole lot of sounds like us. A lot of moving going on. What was it just sports that precipitated some of the moves, or some other stuff going on that kind of caused the movement?
Yeah, mostly sports, but most people think we're military. So I'll get that question all the time. Are you military? Yeah. And not military, but it was definitely me playing ball, and then I went into some sports chaplaincy, basically the pastor for the football teams, and I was a team chaplain at Indiana Hoosiers. I was a team chaplain at James Madison, and now I still serve as a chaplain, just at different places, a lot of high schools, a lot of colleges, and professional football teams bring me in. So a couple weeks ago, I went to do chapel service with the Cleveland Browns when they played the Carolina Panthers, and I got a chapel service this week locally here at a local high school here. And so God just kind of used me to kind of float around a little bit and to be able to use my voice and share a message of purpose, as you talked about, as you mentioned earlier. Purpose Over Position is a nonprofit that I run, but before it was a nonprofit, it was a book, and before it was a book, it was something that I've been living and something that I had to write. And so, we moved around a bit. I'm not even sure if we're done moving, but we'll see.
Well, my wife and I said you guys are finished as far as moving. our vote is you're done. But the opportunity to take that softball you put over the plate, right, about the Browns and needing prayer. That's the low hanging fruit, right? I can go in on the Browns needing prayer because they need prayer. I'm glad you're out there, but I won't stay there. That was too easy for me to pass up.
I know you're a Giants guy.
That's not even why. They just need it. But no doubt. We're gonna talk faith, family, and football. We're gonna stay here in that realm probably for the majority of the show. Because I got a lot I want to have you share with our listeners and viewers and stuff. But I love to hear how the love for football started. I know that I grew up in the inner city, and honestly, my first sports love was baseball. Even though we didn't have a field that were put together well, it was pretty dilapidated, if you will. So football wasn't even my first love, but it's kind of like my biggest sports love now, all of a sudden. But where'd your love for football come from? How'd that start?
I grew up in the Cornwallis Projects in Durham, North Carolina, and I was fortunate enough to grow up there. A lot of people, think that's a bad thing. I was fortunate enough to go there because I learned a lot of valuable lessons. I learned how to fight. I learned how to Fend for yourself. I learned real life principles. But one of the greatest things about living in Cornwallis Projects is that the Durham Eagles Pop Warner football team practiced literally in my backyard. We had a big baseball field that was right down the hill from where I lived. It was a community rec center and it was a baseball field. And that's where my Pop Warner organization. So imagine looking out your window when you're 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, and you see hundreds of little people running around with football helmets on, banging into each other, coaches yelling, and that excited me for whatever reason. That was exciting, and of course, my brother was down there as well. So, I got to watch him, got to be up close and personal to it, and so I started playing when I was 5 years old. I was one of those children that used to cry when I had to go to my brother's games because I could not understand why I was not the one being able to participate, right? Like, why are you telling me that I'm too young to participate? That just didn't make sense to me. And so my love for the game really started early on, especially when I got the football in my hands, but probably playing around with the guys in my neighborhood and us playing tackle football, even without the pads on. That's probably where it started for me.
No, I love this. I love this. So, okay, so let's kind of jump ahead a little bit to your time at JMU. You actually made some history there at James Madison. I love to hear what history you made there, and also what it felt like. What does the record say to those that are looking at it now, years later? Just kind of just share your overall feelings about what you were able to accomplish with that.
Yeah, I mean, even before going to JMU, I always appreciate going through Durham, going to my high school, winning the state championship where we went 16-0, and I was a North Carolina Player of the Year coming out of North Carolina. And what's so significant about that is I went to a majority um, black high school. And
Okay.
so my mom went there, my grandmother went there. I mean, it's a very historic high school. It's a very historic black high school. And so there's a lot of pride that lives at Hillside High School. And so I was very proud about that. Then went off to Georgia Tech where one game I set a record there where it's probably not the greatest record, but it's a record. It was my first game at Georgia Tech, my first opportunity to play, and I had the longest non-scoring run at in Georgia Tech history. It was about 68 or 78 yards, and I got tripped up at the 1 yard line. Crazy, right? Uh,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was crazy. And later on, they told me, hey, that's a record, the longest non-scoring touchdown run. And so I don't know if that still stands, but hey, I was in the record book. We also put up 68 points on UNC at Keenan Stadium, which I think was the highest scoring ACC game at the time. I think that has been broken. And then transferred to James Madison, where had two great years, and I ended up my career one record that has never been done before in Division I history is I rushed and passed for over 275 yards in one game. So I think I had 289 passing yards and 276 rushing yards, and we ended up winning that game. And it was actually against a bigger opponent, SMU, the Mustangs, on their
Yeah.
homecoming in Dallas, Texas. And so that was a big deal. That brought a lot of attention to me, my name, our program. College Game Day ended up coming to James Madison after that, after hearing about that. And we were undefeated. Things were going extremely well for us, but I did go down with an injury, which is a big part of my testimony and my story, which is why I
Yeah.
started my nonprofit where we care about athletes who are overcoming traumatic experiences, both in and out of sports, and just helping athletes to transition well because there's a need there. And so I lived it, I know it. And yeah, man, I had a pretty cool college career, played a little professionally as well.
Absolutely. Spent a little time with my favorite team as well.
Yes,
Don't know
sir.
don't know if you got stories there, but we can.
The only story I have there is I was there about 48 hours and I was gone in 48 hours.
A story is a story. I
Yes, sir.
like it though. It's definitely good. We'll definitely try to come back to some more of the football stuff. You spent from from what I understood from you personally, just sharing your story with me and with us, and just what I've researched myself. I've done a lot of moving around, a lot of traveling. That has an impact on the family. I mean, it can't help but my wife and I celebrated our wedding anniversary a couple of days ago, and or 2 days ago, and well, one day ago, and we talked about how much we moved around. Like I didn't realize the impact that it had on the family. Tell me was like for your family, how the impact was for you to move around so much, to travel so much for all the things that you're doing that we're going to get into shortly. But what was the impact for them?
Yeah, I think the impact is still impacting, right? Because
Okay.
this is current. This is my profession, where a lot of times I get asked to speak and go to different locker rooms and different teams, and hoping to go more corporate on the corporate side and have a little bit more speaking engagements there as well. It's something that you plan for, right? Is
Okay.
something, write it down and make it plain. You got to write it down. You got to have a plan. And you got to have, not just write it down, but you got to have conversations about it as well. And if those conversations just come out of left field, where a lot of times I know from my family standpoint, if I get an opportunity to just come out of left field and it just kind of shows up, you know, a lot of times I feel, celebratory, where it's like a celebration, but from a family standpoint, it might not be a celebration because it's a change in process or change in plans. And so, what I've learned as a man, especially, and as a leader of my home, that, I can't always get excited about the first thing. I can't always get excited about the exciting opportunities that comes my way. I need to make
Yeah,
sure that I count the costs, is what I'll say.
that's
Again,
good.
the costs. And so as a family, it's tough. Like, I think I had to travel the second day that my children started school, and that was tough for me. I tried to get out of it actually and get another day, but I couldn't get out of it, and I ended up getting stuck in the airport. And so
Wow.
that night, because I knew I needed to be home and couldn't miss my children going to school that next day, I rented a car from New York, drove to Baltimore. I got in the car, I rented the car, I got about 12 a.m. I drove to Baltimore, which was about 4 hours, 4.5. Drove to Baltimore, made a 5 o'clock flight, and I was able to get home the next morning at like 8:30 a.m. But it took a level of sacrifice, but it also took a level of fortitude for me as a man to understand my purpose and my position as the husband, and understanding that that's important. It could have been easy for me to go get a hotel, just go to sleep, just call it a day, get a flight the next morning. But for me, I know where I'm needed, and when you know where you're needed, that's where you show up.
Absolutely. What's your biggest challenge in fatherhood to date?
The biggest challenge in fatherhood today, um, I think I think one of the I don't know if this is the biggest challenge, but one of the things that comes to my mind right now is, to be like working on being sensitive. And
That's good.
what I mean by that is, you know, we're taught to be macho, we're taught to be manly, we're taught to be strong, we're taught to be the voice of the house. But there also needs to be the voice of reason. There also need to be the voice of understanding, the voice of wisdom. Not every child is the same, and so how I, would respond to my oldest may be different from how I respond to my middle. Even though I'm thinking, wait, they're both girls. They both are old enough to get it and understand. Um, but I need to have sensitivity to know that each three of my children are different, unique, and I have to have the sensitivity enough to meet each one where they are, and based on not just where they are, but based on what they need. And so, you might can push one a little further than the other, or you might have to back off one more than the other. But that's all about you understanding your children, understanding who they are, their personalities, and what they're all about, and what they need.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I love that. All right, let's jump to the issue you had or the injury you had that I guess we can consider it career threatening. I would say at JMU. Kind of lead us into that, and then the decision you had to make after that, after coming to terms with the injury and the implications of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was having an amazing season. In fact, I was just talking with the Citadel about this, because I had an opportunity to do the Los Angeles Rams chapel service, a couple years ago, and um, into the room was Carson Wentz, which was he played at North Dakota State,
Hmm.
and he was the quarterback there. And JMU and North Dakota State was starting to build this dynasty rivalry type of deal, where the only people that could really beat North Dakota State is JMU. In fact, I think JMU might be the only team that have gone into their home field and beat them out of the last like 20 20-something years. I don't know. Something crazy like that. And so anyway, he was a quarterback there. I was a quarterback at James Madison, and it was really lending itself to both programs doing really well, and both programs may meet up in the national championship. So that meant a lot to me. When I got to do the chapel service and saw him, it was like, it was a full circle moment. Now let me go back to my injury to why it was a full circle moment. We started the season off 7-0. College game day came to James Madison. If you know sports, if you know college football, you know that college game day only goes to the big schools like the Alabamas, the LSUs, you know. But they came to James Madison. Why? Because there was a buzz around the nation about this team, and in particular about this quarterback, including myself, which that was me, right? And so Sports Illustrated, ESPN came to follow me around campus. I was the big man on campus. And oftentimes when you reach the top, there's only one place to go, right? I don't know if I want to submit to that, but, that's a cool saying, a good saying. And I mean, it is what it is, right? And so for me, I was doing really well. I just set that record, things were going well. And then I got hurt. And one of the things that I learned through that injury, I dropped back for a pass. A guy grabbed my foot. He yanked my foot back while I'm falling forward, and I tore a ligament in my foot, which is called a Liz Frank injury. And so, tore a ligament. And what I remember about that moment the most, that impacted my life, was when the referee blew the whistle for play, and I was no longer the starting quarterback. I was no longer the guy leading the show. I was no longer the guy out on the field. When you see your teammates have to keep playing and your coaches have to keep coaching and fans keep cheering, it really just looks like, whoa. It was almost like, just a mini foreshadow of like what death looks like to me, because it was almost like life goes on, but my world just stopped and like paused.
Yeah.
And it taught me a valuable lesson beyond the game of football and beyond sports, but it taught me a valuable lesson in life, that life will go on with or without you. And so my thing is, now that I get to go around teaching teaching people this, when you know that life goes, because a lot of people aren't in those positions to learn those type of lessons. But for me, this was bigger than a football lesson. So now I get the opportunity to capitalize on it and teach people that when you have this understanding, that now you realize that, man, I need to take advantage of this day. I need to give my all at being a husband. I need to give my all at being a father. I need to give my all at being a businessman. I need to give my all, because after all, today is the only day that's guaranteed. And you can make a case that that's not guaranteed, because anything can happen at any point in time. And so when you have that mindset, it's not living out of fear. I don't subscribe by living out of fear. But what I do subscribe is making sure that you give everything you got, or don't give anything at all, because I need your all, not your 50% of you. And so once I realized that the game was going to continue to go on without me, it taught me purpose over position. That's where purpose over position became real, because I could sit and pout and I could start throwing a fit, or I could realize that this is a transition and people are watching me even still in my transition. So because I have that level of responsibility, I need to ensure that I'm transitioning well, not just for them, but for myself, and not just for myself, but for them.
I love that. One thing I've seen it kind of come through our flagship interview show here. Former athletes who, when we talk about, and I love talking about sports, and so it's not a departure from anything that I'm doing. I do it wherever I can because I just enjoy it myself. I enjoy it when I'm off the air. I enjoy when I'm on the air. It's all good. But I've seen a bit of a pattern where former athletes haven't been able to successfully let go of the dream yet. They say that they have, but they find ways to try to get back into it because they haven't really moved past it yet. What do you say to a former athlete or an athlete, no matter what place they're at in their career, that's struggling to let go of the dream, even though it's kind of in the past now? It's not. There's no going back to it now because of injury, because of draft status, whatever it is. How do you speak to and encourage those who are struggling to let go of the dream?
Yeah, dreams don't die, right? Dreams don't die. Especially, we all have that. I don't care what age. At this point, I'm convinced. I don't care what age you become. You still got that little boy, if you're a man, or you got that little girl, if you're a woman
Hmm.
inside of you, that's like a cheerleader, and that you don't want to let down, right? And I think that's the hard part about the transition, when you transition from your sport, because you remember the memories of you winning your first football game, or making your first tackle, or your mom, hugging you after the game, or your dad running alongside of you when you're scoring your first touchdown, even though he's on the sideline. Go, run, run, boy, run, run. You remember all of those fine moments where those were your earliest memories of making your parents proud. Those are your earliest memories of getting a good job, or getting a smile, or getting a hand clap and applause. Those were your early memories. And so we capture that moment, we bottle it up, and we intoxicate ourselves with it. We want to drink it up. We want to continue to live in that moment. And so it's hard to transition, or it's especially hard to transition when somebody tells you that you're not good enough, because as a man, I'm wired to the point of proving you wrong. I built a life, and a lot of us have built a lifestyle out of proving people wrong. And when you build that lifestyle and you no longer have the game to prove somebody wrong, it's almost like, what's my purpose? What's my value? What am I doing
Yeah.
now? And I would tell you, for me, I remember I had to let the naysayers and people who said bad things about me, or told me that I would never make it, or that I wouldn't go to the NFL and all that. I remember having to let them go, and forgive them, and release that from my life, because I realized that sometimes as athletes, we might, and I'm not saying this was the case for me, because I absolutely love the game of football, and I would have signed up to play 20 years like Tom Brady, right? But I wasn't chosen for that, first of all. And then second of all, sometimes players continue to play because they have that voice in the back of their head that they want to prove that person wrong still. That told them that they was never good enough.
Absolutely.
And it might
Absolutely.
not even because you love the game, it's but because you have some type of other agenda that you might not even recognize, but there's an agenda attached to why you're still trying to play. And so once you identify those things, once you see those things, I think it can free you from stressing and feeling the pressure of feeling like you got to make it.
Nobody loves two a days. Let's just be honest about that. So we can lie to ourselves. Nobody loves two a days, and nobody loves practice.
No doubt.
But I want to come back to that. But I want to ask you about the books that you've written. You've written two books. Love to hear the impetus behind why you wrote those two books. I know you're going to write more. I'm positive of that. But why those two books? Why were they timely in your writing of those?
Yeah, so I've written five, I believe, total. And I believe you're referring to Purpose Over Position. So Purpose Over Position was the first book that I ever wrote. And that was in 2020. And I'll tell you, man, that was healing for me. I didn't realize that writing can be healing for you. I wasn't the greatest writer growing up in school. In fact, those state writing tests that we used to get, that we used to have to do, I think it was a score out of 4. I would always get a 2. And I couldn't understand why, but I can never get a 3 or 4. But I always had somebody in my life, not always, I had a spiritual mother in my life, um, who would always tell me since I was in high school that you are a really great writer. Man, there's value in the words that you share to young people. It's not that those words made me write books or made me want to write books. However, I knew that when it was time to write books, that I'm a really good writer because somebody told me that I was. And one of the reasons why I encourage everybody to write, and one of the reasons why I wanted to write, because I learned early on that writing is one of few eternal things that you can do in this life.
Yeah.
I I wanted my children to have access to my voice, access to my words, even after I was gone. I wanted my grandchildren and great grandchildren and great grandchildren, I wanted them to kind of know where they come from, or know something about their lineage. And I knew that if I write this book, First of all, that can be dangerous because writing is eternal. That can be dangerous. Be careful what you write because now you are attached to those words forever.
Without doubt.
And when you know that, you're like, okay, I need to be careful. But it also comes with a great responsibility of I wrote because of my family, and I write because I know that there's other people in my shoes that may be struggling. And you may not have played football ever in your life, but you could be a businessman that just lost your business, right? Just like I got hurt, you can lose it all in one day, and yet that still impacts you the same exact way.
Okay,
And
that's
I'll
what I
tell you,
understand.
and I'll finish that too. I just and because you asked about the other book, I just released Train to Go. Train to Go is a new book out of, and the inspiration is from Matthew 28:19, where in Matthew 28:19, the scripture, the Great Commission tells us, therefore go. One of the things that I've learned about that scripture, or just through my study and through my preparation of speaking, and I think I had to speak to a high school team, and my whole message was about we all want to go. We want to go start the business. We want to go start the podcast. We want to go get married. We want to go whatever. We just want to go. We just want to feel like we are going. But one of the things that we have to understand is before you go, were you there for? Because it says therefore go. Were you there for before you go? Were you there for in planning? Were you there for in studying? Were you there? You just can't show up on game day and expect to play. You got to be there for practice and get the game plan and prepare your body. And so Train to Go is a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual wellness check-in and awareness on how are you doing mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Last thing I'll share about that is based on a traffic light. The book is based on a traffic light, the concept. And I love it because the traffic light actually started off as a two light system. It was red and green. And until a man named Garrett Morgan, I can't remember when, back in the 40s, 50s, I can't remember exactly when, but Garrett Morgan, look up your history, he saw a major car accident. And so he went to work and he decided to include the yield component, which we know as the yellow light. And so now the two light system turned into a three light system, which I thought that was always cool in terms of a wellness check in. How are you doing, Mr. U? Are you in the red or are you yellow? Or are you green? Are you good to go? Are you yellow? Are you a little hesitant? Are you like, things okay, but it could be better? Or are you red, man? I'm red. It's not bad. It's an awareness. I need to be still and know that He is Lord. I need to be calm in this season. So anyway, I could talk on and on about Train to Go, but those two books in particular are kind of like, man, dear to my heart. I also wrote another book titled On Purpose Leadership that you can check out as well.
All right, love that. That was about my question was about that's my friend, but we didn't get there. Don't know we had time to get there now. But so tell me about purpose over position because I know some of it because I feel like I've been supportive of what you've been trying to do. I have my own nonprofit, so it's a balance in that to try to be there for you and do our thing too. But what was the biggest reason you say that you started this? What was the driving? And try to share that briefly if you can. I have a few more questions for you. But why did you start POP?
I saw the need. I saw the need. I saw that athletes, when you go through a transition, one, we're not prepared, and I didn't think that many people prepared us for it. That's just I mean that's I can pause it. I can just stop right there. We're not prepared for even though you're a senior, even though you're year 13 in the NFL, and you know that you're on your last contract year, you're still not prepared for that transition, and not many people prepare you for that transition. One is
Wow.
is because we think that if we start preparing for the transition, that we cheating on the game. It's like, it's like, man, I'm cheating on the game if I got a plan B. And here's the thing: I have a new book or another book in the future that I'm planning on writing, but I'll share a little bit right now. But I never subscribe to Plan B, but I always subscribe, or not always, but I came up with a term called Plan A plus. I think if we can plan A plus, that's just bonus on top of our Plan A. right? If you can plan A plus, that's bonus. Don't look at it as like, oh, if this don't work out, then I need to go to plan B. No, you need to plan A plus, meaning that you're more than prepared than just your current position right now, that your life has a greater purpose and value despite the position that you're in today. And that's what I try to teach, not just athletes, but I try to teach everybody, right? That can be the parent at home who put all their stock into their child. And then once their child leave the home, now they left without identity or purpose or feeling like, man, what am I supposed to do now? Because I'm so used to going to football games on the weekend and my child leading my life. And now I don't have that. The two parents in the household don't know how to date anymore because it was all about the children. There's a greater purpose in parenting. There's a greater purpose in marriage. There's a greater purpose in everything that you do. And when you realize that purpose or you recognize that purpose, then you understand that these positions, like my 8-year-old daughter, she's only 8 for 1 year. That's a position. My 6-year-old daughter, she's only 6 for 1 year. My son, who's screaming and yelling and crying, that's just a position. I'm not going to get crazy mad at him. Sometimes it does get annoying when the yelling in your ear, right? But that's just a phase. That's just a position. What's my purpose as a parent? My purpose is to love this child, to serve this child, to build this child up, to raise this child and train this child in where they should go. There you go. There's the book, Train to Go.
There you go. I love it, man. I love it. All right, just a couple more, and we'll go ahead and get out of here. But one thing out of repetition is, I I love what you're talking about with the whole faith, family, fatherhood component. What would you now? I know that the nonprofit doesn't take the place of those things. It may even fall behind those things, and well, it should. But if you can crystallize your goal for the nonprofit long term, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, what's the singular thing you want to accomplish with a purposeful position?
The singular thing that I want to accomplish is to ensure that there is transitional programs that prepare players in the transition from the thing that they love, to support and restore hope and support young men, especially, but athletes in general. But from my background, I've mostly been in like the football locker rooms and the male locker rooms. But this is to everybody, and it's not even an athletic message. It's a life message to prepare people for transitions and to establish transitions programs and an aware, because all it is an awareness. Even though a transition is coming, it's still gonna hurt the same. It's still you still gonna let's say somebody in your life passes away. That hurts, right? You can't necessarily prepare for that transition. However, you can be aware for that transition. And when we create that awareness, that'll build a bigger bone inside of us to be able to not just handle these situations, but to navigate these situations.
Gotcha. In less than a sentence, or a sentence or less, how are you enjoying life after football? You talking about teaching that kind of stuff. What are you doing to put that in place?
Um, I wouldn't say that my life is without football because I do commentating and all of this
You know
stuff.
what I'm talking about, man. Come on.
I mean, I enjoy it. Yeah, I enjoy life beyond playing football, I would say. Um, it's a blessing to be able to raise my family and to see them. But even if I was playing, I'll still be raising my family, right? So I don't
Of
want to
course.
knock it out for those guys that raising their family while they're playing
Yeah,
NFL.
of course.
But for me, I would say that it's purposeful.
Okay. All right. So this is our last question. Then we'll have you share with the viewers real quick. Let them know where they can find your work. But it's a question that we ask all of our guests to come and call the CMV question: career, mission, vocation. Nobody's exempt from it, so you got to do it too. So temporarily, I take an eraser and I erase everything you've done up to this point. If you thought about it, it's okay. But if you actually did it, you can't answer it this way. What is Vab most likely doing right now after all the things have been erased? What do you think you're doing right now, most likely?
If my whole past has been erasing, what am I doing right now? Most likely,
Everything you've done, football, coaching, writing books, all those things, anything that you've done as a vocation or as a career, you can't use it. What are you doing? I don't have any Jeopardy music, so
That is a great question, and that is hard to answer without feeling like without going back to what you've done. Um, I would say back at my high school coaching football. Like I haven't.
Okay,
I would be back at my high school in Durham, North Carolina, at Hillside High School. Maybe a teacher. Um,
that's beautiful though. That's
yeah,
not that's good. That's
yes,
something that's been there that could have happened. You just didn't embrace it. That's the whole point of the question because there's so many things. I mean, I wanted to be a baseball player for the Yankees. I'm like, so that's just it. So
yeah.
I totally get it. That's a great answer. Great answer, man. I love the time with you, man. It's been fantastic. How can viewers find you, man? How can they find your work, your nonprofit, your books? How can they find you, man? Let them know.
Yeah, I think I'm one of few VADs, or maybe the only VAD. So you could just type me in on Google, everything will come up.
Prayer hat.
Badly, but thepopmission.com is the website to the nonprofit. VAD Speaks is also vadspeaks.com is also where you can book me to speak and come to your school or come to your organization. And then you can find all the books on Amazon.
Thank you for your time, man. Why? I'll give you 120 seconds, man. I can't give any more than that, man. Talk to the people, all the viewers and listeners that are tuned in to check this episode out to watch you and hear your story. What do you want to say to them?
I would just say to everybody, the viewers that are listening, is always understand that your purpose in life is greater than your position, whatever position that you hold. When you understand purpose, then you're not willing to compromise. When you understand purpose, you understand value, you understand why you're doing something, you understand the why, the meat behind the bone. And so, my encouragement to everybody is always tap into the purpose of why you're doing something and why you are in that position, even when it gets hard, even when it gets rough. When you understand purpose, then you won't be willing to compromise when it gets hard.
Good, sir. I appreciate this, man. This episode can be found on our YouTube channel, youtube.com at They Call Me Mr. U. And of course, on every listening platform, wherever you get your podcast from, this episode is going to be there and our show is going to be there one on one with Mr. U. Thanks for listening and watching. Vad and myself are out of here. Have a great day and thanks again.